Hare Krishna. Okay, so yesterday was chapter 5 of Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 5 is called Action in Krishna Consciousness. So essentially, if you see chapters 3, 4, and 5, they all talk about Karma Yoga. Krishna talks about Karma Yoga. So basically, what is Karma Yoga? Karma Yoga is nothing but performing one's prescribed duties without getting attached to the result of the activity. So basically, you continue to do your activities without any attachment to the activity, offering the result to the Supreme Lord Krishna, and gradually developing the knowledge. So what knowledge are we discussing or talking about here? That was mentioned by Krishna in chapter 4. So chapter 5, he talks more about how somebody who is acting on Krishna consciousness, doing his activities in Krishna consciousness, how does he behave? The analogy that Krishna gives is like a lotus leaf. A water droplet on top of a lotus leaf doesn't get stick to the lotus leaf. Similarly, a person who is acting in Krishna consciousness, he would continue to do all the activities, including his prescribed duties, with a sense of detachment and not indulging in sinful activities. So he doesn't get any sinful reaction out of such activities. So that is something which Krishna talks about early in the chapter 5. And then Krishna introduces us to the three doers. See, generally in the material world, the individual soul, because we are not identifying with this soul, rather we are thinking that we are this body, we also assume that we are the doer of all the activities. Anything that we accomplish in life, whether it is scoring good marks in the examination or getting a very nice job in a corporate world or earning a lot of money, we feel that because of our own effort and endeavor, we are able to achieve that. So we take credit for all that. Krishna is saying, don't take all the credit, because the credit should be distributed to three set of people. Very minute doership is lying in us, the Jivatma. The Jivatma's job is only to desire. And who is going to sanction it? The Paramatma or the Supreme Soul. Based on our desire as well as our karma. I may be desiring to become or earn like Mukesh Ambani. But if in my karma, I can only earn 30,000 rupees, then I cannot become a Mukesh Ambani in this life. Right? So then Paramatma decides, you are desiring to become Mukesh Ambani, but you don't have enough karma. So better you become Mukesh Ambani's servant, possibly. Right? So Paramatma, he sanctions, and material nature facilitates. Like, for example, I want to enjoy sense gratification unlimitedly. Then the material nature in my next life provides me a body with which I will be able to enjoy senses unlimitedly. Probably I may be given a body of a pig. Pig can have n number of piglets. It can have unlimited sensual enjoyment and all that. Right? So material nature provides a suitable condition to me. So that when somebody is understanding, when somebody understands that we are not the doers, then such a person develops equal vision. What do we mean by equal vision? When he sees a learned Brahmana and he also sees someone who is coming from a very degraded background, probably a dog eater. He doesn't discriminate between both. I was explaining how Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON, he was acting on that platform. His intention was to fulfill the desire of his spiritual master. His spiritual master or guru ordered him to preach Krishna consciousness across the world. So he went to the Western world, to the America. There he found only people who were so degraded in materialistic life. People don't even know how a human being is supposed to live. So to such people also, Srila Prabhupada showed a lot of compassion. When he was in India, he only met sadhus. He had association of great saintly people. He was living in Vrindavana. Vrindavan, even today, if you go, you can find a lot of pure devotees of the Lord. So imagine someone who all along have been living in Vrindavan for many years, having to go to Western world where he is seeing uncultured people. Obviously, one would think that why at all should I indulge with such people? Why can't I go back to India and lead a peaceful life amidst sadhus? No, but Prabhupada was very clear. He did not want to discriminate. Rather, he wanted to show his compassion and give Krishna consciousness to everyone. And rest is history. Today, if you look at ISKCON or all the Krishna devotees around the world, so many are practicing such nice devotional services, and they have elevated themselves even to the platform of being a Brahmana. Right? They are so devoted and so cultured. You can find many Western Matajis wearing saris and Prabhus wearing dhoti and kurta, which you don't find in the modern India. Modern Indians, they are only addicted to wearing jeans and all Western clothing. Here we are finding the Western people who are adapting to Indian culture because of Srila Prabhupada. Right? So that was about equal vision. And then Krishna introduced briefly to Ashtanga Yoga. And finally, Krishna spoke about the peace formula. Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suhridam Sarvabhutanam Nyatva Shanti Mrichati. Krishna says, he is the ultimate enjoyer, supreme enjoyer. He is the Bhokta. Which means living entity or individual soul, our job should be to satisfy Supreme Lord. Rather than satisfying our own senses, we should satisfy the Supreme Lord. Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. So he is the one who is maintaining everyone, all the planetary systems, all the living entities, the material nature, all included. Krishna is the one who is maintaining. So Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suhurdam Sarvabhutanam. He is the friend of all the living entities. I was giving one, I was talking about one pastime, one story. So from which we can understand how Krishna, he was equal towards the devotee, he was equal towards the businessman and also towards the fisherman. Probably I will share the recording. So that is a lengthy story. Those who missed the class yesterday, you can listen to that story. Very instructive. You can easily understand how Krishna is impartial and he is friend to all the living entities. So that was the conclusive statement of Krishna in chapter 5 of Bhagavad Gita. Quite a short chapter, only 29 verses. Any question from yesterday's chapter? Okay, so let's get into chapter 6. Let me share my screen. Okay, so hope all can see my screen.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes,
Yes,
Prabhu.
Guruji.
So this chapter 6 is titled Dhyana Yoga. So what do we mean by Dhyana Yoga? Anybody in this call would like to give a short synopsis of what Dhyana Yoga is, according to you?
Meditate about God, Prabhu.
Meditate on God. Okay, fair enough. Any other thoughts?
Connection to God, Prabhu.
Connection.
With love.
Okay.
Focus our mind, Prabhuji. Focus our mind towards at the lotus feet of the Lord.
Okay, focus our mind towards lotus feet. Thank you. Somebody said connecting to God. Actually, yoga, as I was mentioning in the earlier class as well, the word yoga means linking with the Supreme. So in that we have different practices. We spoke about karma yoga. Today we will look into dhyana yoga. There is also something called jnana yoga, and then of course bhakti yoga. So in this chapter, Krishna is going to tell which yoga out of all these is the topmost. So when we understand that, then we should start practicing that particular yoga, right? So that is the intention of this chapter. So so far we have covered chapter 1, where it was setting the scene, and then Krishna summarized the contents of Gita. Chapter 3 was karma yoga. 4 again was karma yoga, but Krishna spoke about the transcendental knowledge. And chapter 5, action and Krishna consciousness. Now we get into chapter 6. So different sections, as always, I have tried to list it here. The first few slokas, Krishna is speaking about mind. So all along we spoke about body, gross body, which comprises of 5 material elements, right? In fact, Srimad Bhagavatam gives 24 material elements, which the body is comprised of. 5 gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether, and many other elements as well. So we got introduced to this gross body, and then we saw Atma, or the spirit soul. But there are something else as well. What are those? Mind, intelligence, and false ego. So in this chapter, Krishna is going to speak about mind. And then slowly Krishna gives elaborate description of how Dhyana Yoga, in other words, it is also called Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga. There are 8 limbs of Dhyana Yoga, which we will see today. So Krishna gives brief description of the Ashtanga Yoga practice. Then, interestingly, Krishna talks about what will happen to an unsuccessful yogi. See, the yoga systems I was talking about, right? They are practiced in accordance to the prescription given for a particular yuga. Which yuga are we living in the present time?
Kali Yuga.
Kali Yuga. Right. And what were the previous yugas?
Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga.
Excellent. Yeah.
Satya Yuga,
Satya Yuga,
Dwapara Yuga.
right. Satya Yuga is also called Krita Yuga. The other 2 yugas are Treta and Dwapara Yuga. So in each yugas, because people who are living in that yuga, their lifespan was different, and their following of religious principles was different. Right? The nature of people in each yugas was completely different, because of which the Supreme Lord gave different prescribed methods to achieve the Supreme Lord. So in the Satya Yuga or Krita Yuga, people living at that time, so they were actually indulging in meditation or dhyana. And then in the subsequent Treta Yuga, people started performing yajnas, different yajnas which were prescribed in the Vedas. Subsequently, in Dwapara Yuga, the previous yuga, There, people achieved perfection by worshipping the Lord in the form of deities in temples. That's why if you see a lot of big temples, very old historic temples, like for example, the temples in Vrindavana, or even in South India, you find many temples. Right? Those are typically built 5,000 years back in the Dwapar Yuga. At least the deities or the idol in the temple, they are from that era. Probably the kings in Kali Yuga, they would have built a bigger temple, but the temple worship as such was actually prescribed in Dwapar Yuga. And what about Kali Yuga? Kali Yuga, Phalautad Hari Kirtana. The way in which we need to achieve perfection is simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. It is said in the scriptures, Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Harer Nama eva kevalam, Phalau nastyeva, 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 Gatir Anyatha. So, which means there is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way than this Hari Kirtana. Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Harer Nama. So this Harinama, 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 it is mentioned 3 times, which means great emphasis is given to the Harinama Sankirtana. That is the only way by which all the shortcomings of Kali Yuga can be overcome. Kalau Nastyeva, all the shortcomings can be eradicated simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Right? Gatir Anyata, there is no other way. Nothing else other than Harinama Sankirtanam will work in Kali Yuga. So, which means whether somebody has to practice Dhyana Yoga or Jnana Yoga, perform meditation, sacrifices, temple worship, all those are practically speaking very difficult in Kali Yuga. Right? So, why different prescription for different yugas? Assuming I am having fever, right? So I approach a doctor. The doctor diagnoses me, does some tests, medical tests, and then he says, have these medicines. So the same fever, when a child is having, when we take the child to a pediatrician, do you think the doctor would prescribe the same medicines that was given to me? Not necessary, right? So why is there a variation? It is because of the person's capacity to absorb that medicine. An adult like me, I can take high dosage of medicine. It wouldn't create any problems or side impacts. Whereas a child, when she or he is given a high dosage of paracetamol, then obviously there would be side impacts. So the dosage varies based on the absorption level of individuals. Similarly, though there are different practices, yoga practices available, prescribed by the Supreme Lord, in Bhagavad Gita also this chapter talks about Dhyana Yoga, but it is not so applicable to us, the Kali Yuga people. Right? Often we find many spiritual organizations advertising that you come to us, we will teach you meditation, and you can be happy in this life. But we need to understand that being happy in this life is not the goal of life. The goal of life is to attain eternal happiness, not just in this temporary body. The goal is to end the cycle of repeated birth and death. And it cannot be achieved by mere meditation. Typically what will happen, I have witnessed this. So you go to any spiritual organization, they make you sit in a hall and then they recite some pranav mantra and they ask you to focus on some light. They will switch off all the light and they ask you to focus on a candle or probably some picture of their guru, right? But that is not what Dhyana Yoga is all about. So today we will look into detail. Krishna is going to give a lot of information about that. So that is not such a cheap system. Dhyana yoga is not something which you can practice at home. Right? So when you look into the chapter today, you will understand clearly. And you will also understand that in this yuga, Dhyana yoga or Ashtanga yoga is not practically possible. Right? So let's get into this chapter. So first, Krishna is introducing us to mind. What is the nature of mind? Whether mind is our enemy or is it our friend? And of course, yoga has been redefined by the Supreme Lord. So just to give some information scientifically as well, mind, which is actually called our subtle body. Now you cannot see your mind, right? Nobody can see one's own mind, leave alone others' mind. Right? People often say, can I read your mind? Is it possible that I can do something and I can read your mind? No, it is not possible. Right? So mind is something which is subtle. It is not like this gross body, which is visible to our physical eyes. So the nature of mind is that it is actually going to give us three things: thinking, willing, and feeling. Now we keep thinking about something or other. It is mentioned in science that roughly each individual, we get to think about 60,000 thoughts in a day. 60,000 thoughts in a day. It could be, what is my food today? Where am I going to go now? Whom am I going to meet? How am I going to solve this problem? So many thoughts keep pouring in to our mind, right? So that is the very nature of mind. And oftentimes, the mind could be our enemy or it could be our friend. So when is it enemy and when is it our friend? We will see. Krishna is giving the answer to it. So for those who have conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. Such a profound statement. So when you actually think on this, so definitely whether I am feeling happiness or contented nature, it all depends on how my mind is perceiving the situation. For example, I may be having only 1,000 rupees, right? But I may feel a lot contented. I am satisfied with it. Whereas another person who may be earning in lakhs may not feel that happiness because he still wants to earn more. Right? So why there is this difference? It is because the mind is perceiving things differently. Right? A beggar who is sleeping in a platform may be happy as compared to a millionaire who is still hankering for more money and a better house. Right? So when we can conquer our mind, then it is the best of our friends. Otherwise, the mind is going to be the best of our enemies. Right? So when it is trained as a friend, then what happens? The mind is going to follow the direction. Direction given by whom? By our intelligence. When our intelligence is strong, it can direct our mind. Right? And it is progressive and it is going to give a lot of healthy choices. It is detached from sense gratification. Now, what happens typically when the mind goes out of control? We start hankering for more and more sense gratification. We are no longer satisfied with sensual happiness. And what is the result of someone whose mind is our friend? We get freedom and elevation. We are no longer bound to the cycle of birth and death. We can elevate to the spiritual planets. And on the other hand, when our mind becomes our enemy, which means that we are going to follow all our sinful desires. Right? Each one of us have our own sinful desires. Typically, the Shastra mentions 6 things. What are the 6 things? So basically, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, and Matsarya. So those are the 6 enemies. Right? So what happens when our mind is our enemy? Then we are going to try and satisfy our senses like anything, and because of which all our bad qualities will come out. We are always irritated, agitated. So basically, always thinking about what next, and how can I satisfy my senses? How can I plan our family income for the future? So much of agitation, right? And we are attached completely to sense gratification. And what is the result of an uncontrolled mind? We are going to degrade and get more and more entangled in this material cycle. We cannot come out of this material cycle. So mind, which is actually part of our subtle body, it could be demonic or it could be divine. It all depends on how we are able to control our mind. A controlled mind is actually going to make us divine, and an uncontrolled mind is going to make us more demonic. So what is the life lesson from this? I am not this body and I am not this mind also. Right? By Lord's grace, I can actually control the mind. On our own, it is quite impossible. Right? So we need the mercy of the Supreme Lord to control our mind. So Krishna is redefining yoga in this chapter. As I mentioned earlier as well, what is the meaning of the word yoga, the term yoga? Yoga is actually defined from the Sanskrit dhatu called yuj. So from yuj came yoga. So yuj means linking or connecting. Connecting between whom and whom? Between the living soul or the individual soul and the supreme soul. Jivatma and Paramatma. So that is the real meaning of yoga. And what is it that this yoga is not about? It's not about breathing exercise. You go anywhere around India, literally in every street you can find a yoga teacher. So what is that yoga teacher going to do? He or she is going to only teach us all different asanas and pranayama and so on. And what is the intention of that yoga? It is only to maintain a good physical body. It is not going beyond the bodily concept. And in second chapter, Krishna is giving a very basic understanding. We are not this body, we are the spirit soul. Right? So then, which means the whole concept of practicing yoga in this modern world is definitely misleading. Yoga is not about maintaining your body. It is about connecting between Jivatma and the Paramatma. It's not for physical exercise. It is not about going to Himalayas. We have heard many famous actors. If you look into their personal life, they may be indulging in so much of sinful activities, smoking cigarettes or drinking alcohol, so many bad habits. But then when their film gets released, after the film earns a lot of money, they go to the Himalaya and practice meditation. Do you think meditation is such a cheap thing that a person indulging in sinful activities can go and perform in Himalayas? And people claim that such a person is a yogi. Yoga is not such a cheap thing. Right? it is not a better facility for sensual enjoyment. I know a friend of my wife who apparently was practicing some yoga, right? So performing some yoga. And when we asked her, she said that she's having a lot of health issues. So she wanted to learn all the asanas and pranayamas. And what is the intention? The intention is to get a better healthy body so that she can eat all the non-vegetarian food which she likes to eat. Apparently, because of health reasons, she was not able to satisfy her senses. So she wanted to regain her bodily strength through yoga, so that she can eat as much as non-vegetarian food that she wants to. Unfortunately, that is not the purpose of yoga at all. Right? So if that was the purpose, then why should Krishna speak at length about yoga in Bhagavad Gita? So, as I was mentioning, there are different yoga ladders. It is like you are climbing a step to reach to the top floor. Say you are going to a building with 10 floors in it, so you climb floor by floor. Imagine that each floor is compared to one particular yoga. So initially, the first two steps are called Karma Yoga. Within Karma Yoga itself, there are two divisions. One is Sakama Karma Yoga and the other is Nishkama Karma Yoga. What do we mean by Sakama Karma Yoga? If you know a little bit of Sanskrit, you would know Sakama, which means I have all kama or all desires. So typically such people, they perform different sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas so that they can have a better material enjoyment. Of course, they also know that Supreme Lord Krishna is the Supreme and I want to connect with him. Eventually, they would like to overcome all the material desires, but initially they have all material desires. So that is called Sakama Karma. A little above that is called Nishkama Karma. So Nishkama means no karma. So such a person would perform all the activities with a sense of detachment, not actually expecting anything as a result, giving everything, offering everything to the Supreme Lord Krishna, and also trying to develop the knowledge about the Supreme Lord. So such an yoga system is called Nishkama Karma. Right? So that is the second level of the yoga ladder. And above that is called Jnana Yoga. So Jnana Yoga is nothing but those who are indulging in philosophical speculation. They study a lot of Vedic scriptures, trying to understand who is the Supreme Lord. They put a lot of effort. They don't do any other activities. They just go to, they just keep on studying all the Vedas, trying to understand who the Supreme Lord is. And finally, their goal is to go and merge into the Supreme Lord. Right? Something called Brahma Jyoti. So that is nothing but the Jnana Yoga. And then comes Ashtanga Yoga, in which Krishna is going to explain in detail in this chapter. Ashtanga Yoga means, of course, performing all the asanas and pranayama is one of the steps in Ashtanga Yoga, but that is not everything. There are 8 different steps. So when somebody follows that, he can achieve mystic power. He can also realize Paramatma within his heart, right? And that is not the perfect yoga as well. And which is the perfect yoga? The topmost yoga, that is nothing but Bhakti Yoga, right? So Bhakti Yoga is where the person practicing that yoga, he does not have any other desire. He doesn't want any material sense gratification. He is not bothered about performing karma. He does not want to want to do speculation, trying to understand all the Vedas. He is not interested in attaining mystic power or realizing Paramatma. His goal is only to satisfy the Supreme Lord, Bhagavan, Sri Krishna. That is the topmost yoga system. Krishna in this chapter clearly mentions that point towards the end of the chapter. Right? So this is just to give a brief overview of the different yoga systems. So lesson is that we need to choose our goal, and that defines our role. Which means if my goal is to have a lot of enjoyment in life, then you can probably practice Sakama Karma Yoga. So I want to have a happy life, a contented life, and I want a good family. Better perform Sakama Karma Yoga. If you want to understand more about the Supreme Lord, but you are attached to your activities, then perform Nishkama Karma Yoga. If you want to go and merge into Brahman, you don't want any material existence, you want to go and merge into Brahma Jyoti, then better perform Jnana Yoga. Or somebody wants to realize Paramatma within, such person can perform Dhyana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. And those people who only want to serve the Supreme Lord and eventually attain Vaikuntha, such persons need to perform Bhakti Yoga. Right? So based on our goal, a person has to choose appropriate yoga system. If you are intelligent enough, especially for those who are born in this present age of Kali Yuga, the other yoga systems are practically not possible. Right? So you cannot perform Ashtanga Yoga. Today in the class, we are going to discuss how one can perform Ashtanga Yoga. So that would give clarity. Right? Then in the next section, Krishna elaborately talks about the Ashtanga Yoga system. Right? So what are the different practices, physical as well as mental? And of course, finally, we will also understand what are the difficulties in this yoga system. So Krishna in these verses, he is going to talk about how a Dhyana Yoga has to be performed. As I mentioned earlier, you cannot practice Dhyana Yoga at your home, or you cannot go to some spiritual institution and then perform yoga in such an environment. And what is this? What are the meaning of these verses? Prabhupada explains. One should hold one's body, neck and head erect in a straight line. So basically, the entire body should be in a straight line. Stare steadily at the tip of the nose. So which means through your eyes, you need to focus on the tip of your nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. Right? So there are many preconditions here that Krishna is mentioning. What are the preconditions? Before this sloka, Krishna also talks about the fact that we need to go to a forest, to a secluded place to perform Dhyana Yoga. And then one should maintain this posture, sitting straight, body, neck, and your head erect in straight line. Focus on the tip of your nose. See, my own personal experience is, even while we are trying to do some prayers, right? So we fall asleep because we cannot remain fully focused, especially when we eat a lot of good food, right? Immediately we fall asleep. But to perform Ashtanga Yoga, you cannot eat anything and everything, right? So there are a lot of restrictions, and you need to perform this going to a forest with such a difficult position, bodily position, And you should also not indulge in any sense gratification, completely free from sex life. In that condition, one need to perform the meditation, right? So just imagine how difficult it is. Anybody in this call who think this dhyana yoga is possible or practical?
Not
No.
practical. No, Prabhu.
Not possible, Prabhuji.
Yeah, not possible, right? And then we may be wondering, okay, Krishna is talking about focusing your mind on the Lord within, but when we try to focus more on our mind, that's when the mind starts to think about something else. Like, for example, when I tell you that don't think about the money with the monkey which is standing on the tree nearby, right? Immediately, what will you do? Till that point, you don't even know that the monkey is holding on the tree there. But as soon as I tell you, your mind starts to think only about that monkey. I purposefully tell you that don't meditate on the monkey, but that's when you start meditating on the monkey more and more. Especially for those who have been to Vrindavan, I'm sure you would understand this or appreciate this, right? We may be going to hundreds of temples in Vrindavan, but whenever we visit each of the temples, whether we are looking at the Lord's form or not, we will only meditate on the monkey, because the monkeys, they keep disturbing us like anything, right? Many people, I personally had so much of bad experiences, right? Took off my specs. To some devotees, the monkeys take away the purse, the wallet, right? So much of disturbances it creates. So what I'm trying to say is, it is very difficult to focus our mind on something. But Krishna is saying, so whenever the mind wanders due to flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under control. So this is something for the dhyana yoga especially. So when somebody is performing dhyana yoga, sitting in a straight posture, focusing on the tip of the nose, trying to meditate on the Supreme Lord within, that's when all unwanted things will come in, right? Because you don't have anything else. Your mind is free. It cannot focus on the Supreme Lord. It's not so easy. That's when it starts to give you a lot of ideas. Hey, you have come to the forest. What about your family there? How are they surviving? Are they getting enough money to lead their family? So what about your bank balance? So all nonsense ideas will come. So Ashtanga Yoga is quite difficult. So on a mental platform, Ashtanga Yoga requires an uneducated mind, devoid of any material desires. You should not have any other desire than focusing on the Supreme Lord within. Complete celibacy, no indulging in any sense gratificatory activity. You cannot go to a forest with your girlfriend and say that you are performing meditation. That is bogus. You cannot have a man and a woman go to a forest and perform meditation. Then you will only be meditating on each other. So that's not Jnana Yoga. And Krishna says, lamp in a windless place. So you take a lamp out, obviously there will be wind. So where is the question of windless place? It is very difficult to maintain the lamp, right? All your habits have to be regulated. You cannot indulge in sense gratification. You cannot eat anything at any time that you think like. You cannot sleep forever. So there are so many regulations that are needed. More explained in this slide. What are the different limbs of Ashtanga Yoga? Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and finally Samadhi. Yama, Niyama are nothing but do's and don'ts. You do this, you do this, you do this, you don't do that, you don't do that, you don't do that. Wake up early in the morning. Don't sleep like a pig. Don't eat to your fill till your throat. Right? So many rules and regulations are there. And asana, your sitting posture, typically Padmasana. How many of us can sit in Padmasana posture for 2 hours? Leave alone 2 hours. We cannot even sit for 2 minutes, right?
Very difficult, Prabhuji.
Very, very difficult. So, asana, we have seen so many asanas that people may perform. But it's all very difficult, practically not possible in this age. Pranayama, breath control. Like Dhruva Maharaj, whose pastime was mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, he was a devotee of Lord. He performed Dhyana Yoga. You know what he did? Literally, at the end of 5th month, he was only surviving on air. He performed pranayama. He did not eat anything at all. And he simply survived on air. He had no other food. That is not possible at all for us. Even when we have to fast for a single day without eating food, it is very difficult. And then pratyahara, withdrawal of senses. Earlier we saw Krishna talking about how a devotee has to withdraw the senses like a tortoise. Right? Tortoise goes inside the shell whenever the enemy attacks. So that was the prescription by Krishna. So here also the pratyahara is somewhat similar, where we need to withdraw all our senses from sense gratification. Dharana, complete concentration on the Supreme. Dhyana, meditative absorption. And finally Samadhi. Samadhi is nothing but complete union with the Supreme Lord. Right? So these are the 8-step processes of Ashtanga Yoga. So to which Arjuna is saying, oh Krishna, whatever yoga system that you are recommending, it is very difficult. Because the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. And to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. Arjuna was such a great personality. He had so many wonderful skills. He himself is saying, I can better control the wind, but I cannot control my mind. Then what to speak of Kali Yuga products like us? We cannot even control the wind. Then how can we control our mind? Right? So one specialty of this mind is the mind can travel at a much faster pace or speed than anything else in this material world. Right? So typically the scientists, they talk about the speed of light, the speed of sound, and so many other things, right? But you think about the speed of mind. I can be sitting here, I can be in the class, but my mind may be somewhere else. I could be in London as well, thinking about my daughter who probably is studying in London, right? So the mind has such a capability. It can go anywhere within no speed, no time, basically, right? So to control the mind and to bring it back is quite difficult. The important thing about other yoga systems and bhakti yoga is, in other yoga systems like a dhyana yoga, the prerequisite is that one should have a controlled sense and mind even before practicing that yoga system. Whereas in bhakti yoga, as you start practicing the bhakti yoga, which means chanting of the holy name, automatically all the other things like your senses and your mind come into control. You need not have to specifically endeavor to control your senses and mind. By practice, by the potency of the Supreme Lord's holy name, your mind and your senses automatically come under control. That is why Bhakti Yoga is quite easy to perform and prescribed in this age of Kali Yuga. Right? And there is also this analogy of chariot of the body, which is mentioned in the Puranas. So the driver in the chariot is nothing but the individual soul. The passenger is the individual soul. The driver is the intelligence. And then you have different ropes which are tied against the different horses. They are compared to our mind. And the five senses are the five horses. At the present situation, when we want to perform Dhyana Yoga, our mind goes here and there, which means it is no longer under the control of our intelligence. So what will happen? Each of the horses, they will go in one direction. So then can the spirit soul or the passenger reach the destination which he was intending to reach? Not possible, right? Because the mind is not in control, the senses are out of control. Where is the question of the soul or the passenger reaching his destination? Not possible, right? So Arjuna says, so subsequently, so Krishna spoke about the Dhyana Yoga, and then Arjuna said it is not possible for me to practice Dhyana Yoga because my mind is restless. Then Arjuna had a question. So imagine somebody is practicing Dhyana Yoga or any yoga system for that matter for thousands of years or thousands of lifetimes. What will happen to such a yogi? Is it that whatever endeavor that he made, everything will go for a waste? So that's the question of Arjuna. For which Krishna says, unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment on the planets of pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into the family of rich aristocracy. Say somebody has tried to perform Dhyana Yoga for many years, but he became unsuccessful. He got deviated from the process. So what will happen? The Supreme Lord will give that person another chance. He will get to enjoy in the higher planets, in the upper planetary systems for many years. And then he is born into the family of a righteous people or into the family of aristocratic people. So what is the advantage here? You already have proper environment to practice your spiritual life. For example, when somebody is born in a pious family or in a sattvic family, then practicing spirituality is very easy. As against, say, somebody is born in a very low-born family, right? Say, for example, somebody is born into a fisherman's family. Obviously, the environment is not very conducive, right? And that said, for practicing Bhakti Yoga, there is no prerequisite at all. Whether somebody is born as a fisherman or he is born in a rich Brahmana family, everyone has equal opportunity. So that is the specialty of Bhakti Yoga. But in general, for other yoga systems, we need conducive environment and conducive practices so that we can advance further. And Krishna is saying that such person will be given conducive environment. Right? So when somebody has only began that process and he fell apart, then such person will go to heaven, enjoy there, and be born in a rich and aristocratic family or in a Brahmana family. For those who have reached almost to the 95% or 90% of perfection, but unfortunately fell apart, then such person will be given birth in a spiritual family. We find children born in devotees family. Why they are born in that family? Because probably in their previous life they had practiced yoga system but did not succeed, which means they did not attain the perfection in that lifetime. So they are given an opportunity in this lifetime to be born in a spiritual family. From where they can actually progress further, right? So the life lesson is that in spirituality, it is always a win-win situation. Whether I win or lose in this lifetime, I can definitely continue from where I left off in the next life. So there is nothing for us to lose. So that is something which is actually a positive thing, whether you are practicing any yoga system. So, destination of the yogi. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. So, what is Krishna meaning here by the term yogi? So, Prabhupada says in his purport, here the yogi refers to that person who is actually practicing bhakti yoga. So a bhakti yogi is greater than ascetic. Ascetic or someone who is practicing tapasya or dhyana yogi, right? He is greater than a dhyana yogi. He is also greater than an empiricist. Empiricist is someone who is doing philosophical speculation, or a jnana yogi. So bhakti yogi is actually above a jnana yogi as well. And he is also greater than a fruitive worker. Fruitive worker typically is a karma yogi or a sakama karma yogi, basically, right? So which means you have the karma yoga, above that is the jnana yoga, above that is the ashtanga yoga, and above even ashtanga yoga is bhakti yoga, right? So that is something which we need to understand from this section of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6. So all other yogas are actually progression towards the destination of bhakti yoga. Whether somebody is practicing meditation or philosophical speculation or karma, they need to come to the platform of bhakti yoga, right? So there was a devotee which Prabhupada also talks about in his lectures many a times. So he was actually practicing meditation. He was a Brahmana practicing meditation. But he understood that the Supreme Lord is Krishna. So he started meditating on the Supreme Lord Krishna. He did not have any money at all. So in his mind, he started meditating every day that he was performing different sevas to the Lord. He was performing arati. He used to imagine all that because he did not have money to buy all the articles. So he used to imagine all that in his mind. So one day he will think that, okay, today I am going to perform arati, and then I will dress my deities nicely, and then I will make nice garland and wear it into the neck of the Supreme Lord, and I will prepare nice food preparations. So one day he thought, let me prepare sweet rice. So in his mind, he went to a shop, bought all the ingredients, rice, sugar, cashew nut, all the ingredients needed for a sweet rice, started preparing in his mind on a stove. He put everything in a vessel. The milk was nicely boiling. Preparation was almost done. He wanted to touch and see whether it was uh, it was not so hot so that it can be offered to the Supreme Lord. So he started touching mentally, and immediately he felt that his finger was getting burnt. So when he saw, he opened his eye and saw, in reality, his finger was actually burnt. How could it be possible? Because he was just imagining everything in his mind. He was meditating that he was preparing a nice sweet rice for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. But in reality, his finger got burnt. And at the same moment, Supreme Lord, who was sitting in Vaikunta, he was actually laughing. So then Lakshmi Devi, who was massaging the Supreme Lord, she was inquiring, "Oh Lord, what is the reason for your laugh?" Then the Supreme Lord said, "I will explain you, but first of all, I will send my messengers to go and pick this particular Brahmana from Bhuloka, bring him to Vaikuntha Loka." So then the Vishnu Dudas, they came all the way to that place, brought the Brahmana, put him in the chariot, golden chariot, and lifted him to the Vaikuntha. And then Vishnu started explaining to Lakshmi Devi who this person is. So he was a person who was meditating in his mind all along throughout his life, thinking that he is offering everything to me. And it so happened that he was preparing nice sweet rice in his mind, and when he touched it, his finger got burnt. So I am so happy with his devotion and love. So I am rewarded him Vaikuntha Prapti. Right? Now, hearing to this story, one should not think that, okay, then I can also imitate this Brahmana. Let me also try to meditate everything in my mind. In my mind, I will think that I am chanting. In my mind, I will think that I am going to a temple. And let me offer everything in my mind. No, that is not recommendation from this story. This Brahmana was in an elevated state. In our stage, we need to employ our senses because our mind is not in a controlled state. It is completely wavering here and there. So we should engage our senses in the Lord's service so that at one stage, we can actually train our mind to become our friend. At this point, our mind is nothing but our enemy. It is giving us all bad thoughts, right? So once we reach that stage in Bhakti Yoga, anything is possible. You can offer anything and everything in your mind to the Supreme Lord. But that is only at an advanced stage, not in the initial stage. Right? And finally, Krishna is saying, as a conclusion in this chapter, Yoginam api sarvesham adgatenantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam sameyukta tamo mataha. Of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. Of all the yogis, Karma Yogi, Jnana Yogi, Dhyana Yogi, Ashtanga Yogi, only Bhakti Yogi is the topmost. Because such a devotee is always thinking about the Supreme Lord with great faith and rendering devotional service to the Supreme Lord Krishna. Such a person is the topmost yogi. Many of you may be aware of this pastime of Ambarish Maharaj. Ambarish Maharaj, the pastime is mentioned in Bhagavatam. He was a devotee of the Lord practicing Bhakti Yoga. He was a Kshatriya, having a family, maintaining his family, but he was always engaging in the Lord's service. One day, what happened? Durvasa Muni, he came along with all his servants, 60,000 people, came to the place of Ambarish Maharaj. And Ambarish Maharaj said, I want to serve you. So Durvasa Muni said, okay, I will go and take bath and come. You please make nice preparations. We will have prasadam in your place. Ambarish Maharaj was fasting for Ekadasi. You know, Ekadasi is a day which comes every 15 days once. It is very special day, very pleasing to Lord Hari, Lord Krishna. So Ambarish Maharaj was fasting without even drinking water for 1 year. What was the intention? The intention was to please Supreme Lord Krishna. So Durvasa Muni went along with his associates to the nearby river, but he did not come for a long time. But here Ambarish Maharaj was in anxiety because he had to break the fast. On the next day, which is called Dwadasi, you are supposed to break the fast at a particular time. If you don't break the fast, then all the efforts that you take to fast for Ekadasi will go for a waste. So Ambarish Maharaja was in a great dilemma whether to break the fast, because that will not be good, because Durvasa Muni was waiting for Prasadam. He cannot honor Prasadam without Durvasa Muni. So Ambarish Maharaj was in a great dilemma. Then a priest in his kingdom, he suggested, oh Maharaj, you drink a small drop of water, that is not considered as breaking. So Ambarish Maharaj agreed and he simply drank a small drop of water. Durvasa Muni came to know about this. He got so furious. How on earth can this person ignore me? He was supposed to feed me first and then only have. But here he is not feeding me and he is having, he has broken the fast. So what he did, he created a great demon by his mystic power and he told that demon, go and kill Ambarish Maharaj. So the demon went and attacked Ambrish Maharaj. Ambrish Maharaj was sincerely praying to the Supreme Lord Hari. He was not bothered at all. And you know what happened? Sudarshan Chakra, the famous chakra that comes from Supreme Lord Krishna, came and killed the demon immediately and started chasing Durvasa Muni. Durvasa Muni was such a great Muni. Muni means what? Somebody who does philosophical speculation, typically a Jnana Yogi, right? So he was running for his life. He went to the Brahma Loka, to the Shiva Loka. He went finally to Vaikuntha Loka also. Went and met Vishnu. Vishnu said, "No, I cannot control my Sudarshan Chakra because you have displeased my devotee. Go and ask forgiveness to my devotee Ambrish Maharaj. He can only protect you." So then Durvasa Muni, he came down and fell at the feet of Ambrish Maharaj, apologized. And then Ambrish Maharaj said, "I am not taking offense. I am requesting Sudarshan Chakra to please spare Durvasa Muni." Then the Sudarshan Chakra left that place and Durvasa Muni was spared. What is it that we can understand from this story? You become a devotee like Ambrish Maharaj, practice Bhakti Yoga. Then you need not take so much of effort to practice Dhyana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. Right? You can please the Supreme Lord Krishna much more easily by practicing Bhakti Yoga. Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, simply by performing devotional service to the Lord, Supreme Lord Hari, you can actually please him in this age of Kali. So that is why Krishna is saying Bhakti Yoga is the topmost. Right? So to such yogi, why are they so topmost? Because they always think about Supreme Lord within themselves. And they always render service to Krishna. So Bhakti Yoga has maximum result, very minimal effort. Anybody can practice. A woman, a child, an adult, an old man, anyone can practice Bhakti Yoga. There are no qualifications. It is completely sin-free. Krishna takes complete control of such a devotee. That is the speciality of Bhakti Yoga. And the destination of such a topmost yogi is to go back home to the Vaikuntha Loka, to the Goloka Vrindavana, from where we need not again come back to this material world. That is the topmost destination, which is easily attainable when one sincerely follows Bhakti Yoga. Right? So, of course, one can develop one among the different types of relationships with the Supreme Lord, either it is Shantarasa or Dasyarasa, Shakya, Vatsalya, Madhurya. These are some things which we will try to understand more in detail in the future classes. But in short, by performing Bhakti Yoga, you can go back to Krishna's place and develop loving relation with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Right? So with that, I will end the session here. So the main essence of today's session is we understood what Dhyana Yoga is all about. It is not about performing meditation sitting in our home. It's all about performing what is prescribed by the Supreme Lord in the Shastras. In the Bhagavad Gita, you can get a lot of information about it. It is quite practically very difficult to practice Dhyana Yoga in this age of Kali Yuga. So, the easiest process is to perform Bhakti Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga can be performed by anyone simply by chanting this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra 108 times and as many number of rounds as possible. Prabhupada says 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra one can try to achieve. But to start with, you can start chanting one round of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, which is nothing but 108 times the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That is the easiest process for this age of Kali Yuga. By performing this Bhakti Yoga, one can attain the result which is not attainable by practicing other yoga systems. Hare Krishna. So I will conclude it here. Any questions or comments that you may have, you can please ask. Any specific questions? Okay, so one small announcement. Next week, Sunday, we have the Jagannath Rath Yatra in ISKCON Chennai. So Rath Yatra is an annual event. It happens in Jagannath Puri in Orissa. Every ISKCON centers, we also celebrate Jagannath Rath Yatra. So this Sunday, it begins at 2 p.m. In the afternoon, and we all can come and pull the Rath. In the Rath, we will have Lord Jagannath, his brother Balram, and their sister Subhadra Devi. So by pulling the Rath on that day, we can actually overcome the repeated cycle of birth and death. It is mentioned in the scripture that one who pulls the Lord in the Rath never takes birth again in this material world. So it's an open invite to all of you, especially those who are in Chennai. Even those who are outside of Chennai can also try to come. It is a very beautiful event. A lot of cultural events as well planned. You can watch a nice drama on Neelachal, on Neelamadava. You can have wonderful prasadam. It's a very nice event. So it starts at Neelankarai in Chennai. So that's where the ISKCON is also located, few kilometers away. I will share the invitation in our group. You can try to come on that day. If you happen to see me, we can actually meet in person as well. Because many of you I am just seeing on Zoom. Some of you are turned your video on, but others I have not seen. So I would be very happy to meet you in person on the Rath Yatra day. You can find me throughout the day. I would be happy to spend some time with you all. And if I can be of any help in your spiritual practices, I would be more than happy to do. Hoping to see you, most of you, on Jagannath Rath Yatra, which means on Sunday we will not have a class. So next Saturday we will be having our class, but Sunday we may have to skip. We will compensate in the next week's class. Is that fine? So this Sunday alone, which is the 7th of July, there won't be any class. We can meet you in ISKCON Chennai.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I have one small question.
Yes, Padri.
This, apart from the temple, the Ratha pulling in the temple, right, organized by the temple, there are other places also, no, like, where you don't have a temple, the devotees get together, they make a small Ratha.
Right.
So do you get the same benefit when you pull that Ratha also?
Any endeavor that we make in pulling the Rath of Lord Jagannath will definitely give us result, Mataji. Like, for example, Prabhupada, when he was a child, he used to make his own Rath and have a small deity of Lord Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra. Along with his friends, he used to pull the Rath.
Oh.
So that's an inspiration for all of us now. We see even in the devotees, they do it at home also. Children, they get together and they pull the Rath. Definitely you will get the benefit.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, 3 years before we did it at home. We did a small Rath at home.
Okay.
We did it at home. We had a small Rath Yatra at home.
Right.
3
So
years before.
Yeah, so definitely you will get a lot of benefit. There is no doubt. But there is a difference between installed deity in temple and the deities that we worship at home.
Yes, that's what I wanted to know, Prabhuji.
Installed deity in the temple, they are installed by the great acharyas. So they have so much of potency.
Yes.
The deities that we worship at home, it depends on our standards and whether they are installed by our spiritual master. So that is something which we need to be mindful.
Okay.
But otherwise, Krishna is always recognizing all our effort. But when it comes to the deities in temple, installed deities, Jagannath deity in Puri, or any installed deities by the acharyas, they are more powerful.
Okay, thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you
Hare
all.
Krishna, Prabhuji. I just want to know the exact timing of the Rath Yatra.
2 p.m. is what it is going to start, Mataji.
2 p.m. till?
2 p.m. till the Rath would reach by 5:30. 5:30.
Okay.
6 o'clock there is a drama in ISKCON Chennai. And then Prasadam, it would happen around 7:30, 7:30. Everything will get over by 8 o'clock or so.
Oh, thank you, Prabhuji.
Any dress code, Prabhuji, for the to pull the Ratha?
There is no specific dress code. Anybody can come and pull it. It would be good if you can, Matajis can wear sari with a nice tilak. That will
Yes,
be good,
yes.
but it's not
Yeah.
mandatory.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, so thank you all. Have a nice Krishna conscious week ahead. We'll meet you all next Saturday.
Same to you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you
Pranam.
very much,
Thank you.
Prabhuji.
Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.